If you care about whether American institutions still operate when power refuses to step aside, you need to pause and really take in what just unfolded on Capitol Hill. This was a moment when the system hesitated, and what follows that hesitation is still unknown. This is not just another headline in the daily churn. That distinction matters, especially when institutions are under pressure. What played out in the House of Representatives was not political theater hunting for attention. It was Congress striking a spark near the heart of the Constitution and realizing almost instantly that the flames don't respect boundaries. Here is the context that cannot be ignored. The House has passed articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. The margin was not overwhelming. It was not stabilizing. It was not reassuring. It passed by a single vote, 218 in favor, 217 opposed, one vote separating action from institutional freefall. Let that settle. One vote. In structural terms, that margin is not confidence. It is a warning signal, because outcomes this narrow do not project unity. They reveal rupture. They signal that nearly half the chamber views the situation as an immediate and existential threat, while the other half believes the process itself is the danger. Those positions do not bend easily. They calcify. Inside the chamber, the mood was reportedly dense and tense. Lawmakers were not simply logging preferences. They were committing to trajectories, and that matters, because when margins collapse this tightly, legitimacy becomes brittle. Public trust becomes unstable. Party discipline frays. Crossing the line begins to feel both more perilous and more tempting at the same time. This was not the end of anything. It was the starting signal. The House vote settles nothing. It activates everything. It transforms political disagreement into institutional momentum. And once that machinery is moving, no single actor truly controls it. Trump responded almost immediately and publicly. He labeled the vote a partisan attack. He made it unmistakably clear he has no intention of stepping aside. According to people around him, his legal advisors preferred restraint. They wanted disciplined messaging, fewer provocations, less fuel on the fire. That did not happen. Restraint has never been his default setting. He operates on instinct, dominance, and an absolute refusal to concede ground. That stance is deliberate. It resonates with a segment of voters who reject negotiation altogether. They want confrontation. To them, compromise signals weakness. Escalation signals strength. This is where the focus shifts from an individual to the system itself. While Trump went loud, something equally important happened in parallel. Senior Republican leadership went quiet. No immediate counterattack, no coordinated messaging, no visible effort to shield the institution of the presidency. That silence is not confusion, it is not absence. In Washington, silence during crisis is often strategy. It means powerful figures are taking measurements, counting votes, watching donors, reviewing internal polling, calculating where survival lies. This is not normal. When leaders with megaphones choose not to speak, it usually means the numbers are unsettled. No one wants to plant a flag on the wrong side of a moving boundary. And in moments like this, that boundary shifts quickly. The narrow vote magnifies everything that follows. It shapes how legitimate the process feels to the public. It influences whether senators feel insulated enough to cross party lines. It affects whether institutional actors believe enforcement mechanisms will hold under challenge. One vote does not merely pass a motion, it reveals how thin the ice actually is. Here is what many people overlook. A vote like this does not calm a system, it destabilizes it, because now everyone understands the margin for error is effectively zero. Any new evidence, any shift in public opinion, any crack in leadership unity can tip the balance in ways that seemed impossible when outcomes felt secure. Reports already indicate that even those convinced the outcome is predetermined are preparing contingencies. That alone tells you something. Institutions do not prepare for certainty. They prepare for volatility. Calling this simply a political fight misses the point. What we are witnessing is an institutional reflex under stress, a system responding not just to a challenge to authority, but to the question of whether authority can still be transferred, limited, and enforced by rules that everyone agrees to respect. The House acted. Trump rejected the premise. Party leadership paused. And the instability lives in the space between those moves. Because when power refuses to recognize process, the process must decide how far it is willing to go to enforce itself. Buried in this opening phase is a detail many are still underestimating, one that quietly determines how much control any single actor actually has once the system fully engages. The most dangerous misunderstanding shaping public reaction right now is this: impeachment is not removal, not legally, not institutionally, not historically. This is where you need to slow down. The House of Representatives does not remove presidents, it accuses them. Functionally, the House operates like a charging body. It reviews conduct, debates allegations, and votes on whether those allegations meet the constitutional standard for impeachment. That is the full extent of its role. It does not deliver a verdict. It does not impose punishment. It does not end a presidency. That authority belongs to the Senate, and this is where the power dynamic changes. Once articles of impeachment pass, the process enters a different institutional ecosystem. The Senate becomes a trial court. Senators are no longer posturing for districts. They become jurors in a constitutional proceeding. Evidence matters, procedure matters, and the threshold is intentionally unforgiving. To remove a sitting president, the Constitution requires a two-thirds vote of the Senate. 67 senators, not momentum, not outrage, 67. Here is what that means in practice. Even if every Democrat and aligned independent votes to convict, the numbers still fall short without a substantial block of Republicans crossing party lines. Not one or two. A large enough group to override party loyalty, primary threats, donor pressure, and backlash from the base. That is not a theoretical obstacle. It is structural. And we have seen this before. Trump has been impeached previously. The Senate did not remove him. Party cohesion held. Fear of voter retaliation held. The gravitational pull of the Trump movement held. The structure bent. It did not break. This is not about personality. It is about incentives. And incentives explain why a second constitutional mechanism keeps resurfacing with more confidence than it deserves. The 25th Amendment, Section 4. On paper, it sounds dramatic. The vice president, joined by a majority of the cabinet, can declare the president unable to perform the duties of the office. Authority transfers immediately. That sentence alone triggers panic or hope depending on who reads it. But the next sentence matters more. The president can challenge that declaration. If he does, Congress decides. And to keep him sidelined, you need two-thirds support in both chambers. That bar is higher than impeachment conviction. Higher. And the process requires something even more politically explosive. The president's own cabinet, his appointees, his inner circle. They would have to turn publicly in a Trump-centered political environment where doing so is not just difficult, but professionally and personally destructive. Careers end there. Alliances collapse there. The path exists. It is lined with institutional explosives. Many analysts stop here. The system does not. There is a third constitutional mechanism that unsettles strategists precisely because it does not follow familiar rules. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, often called the Insurrection Clause. This provision is not about removal, it is about eligibility, whether someone who engaged in or aided insurrection can hold office at all. That distinction is not academic, it is destabilizing. Eligibility disputes do not stay contained. They spill into courts, Congress, state election systems, and ballot access battles. And once that happens, there is no single referee. If this clause is aggressively pursued, the battlefield multiplies. This is why the House vote happened when it did. Power is shifting beneath the surface, quietly, unevenly. And the earliest signals are not speeches or press conferences. They are donor hesitation, internal polling, closed-door meetings. When major funding networks pause, politicians feel it instantly. When fundraising slows, re-election plans wobble. And when re-election plans wobble, courage becomes cheaper. Recent reporting suggests that figures in finance and technology who once saw Trump as a useful instrument now see him as volatility itself, a destabilizing force, a risk to markets, governance, and long-term party viability. This is not ideological. It is actuarial. Inside the Republican Party, this tension has never been resolved. One faction tolerated Trump for judges, tax policy, and electoral gains. Another treats him as a symbol of defiance against the entire system. They coexist. They do not share an endgame. Impeachment forces a choice, and unlike messaging wars, that choice cannot be disguised. That is why quiet conversations matter. Senators are reportedly meeting without staff, running scenarios, discussing what evidence could move votes, measuring how much backlash they can absorb. Institutions do not rehearse outcomes they believe are impossible. Preparation is an admission that the ground could still shift. Evidence is the lever. Impeachment trials are not symbolic rituals. They can force information into the open. Documents, messages, sworn testimony, subpoenas collapse private narratives. If material emerges pointing to obstruction, intimidation, or coordination with individuals facing criminal exposure, the cost of continued defense rises sharply. Loyalty becomes expensive. Silence becomes riskier than defection. This is the strain point. Not because outcomes are known, but because uncertainty forces every actor to reassess exposure. When exposure changes, alliances follow. What looks like chaos is often recalibration, and buried inside that recalibration is a question still not being asked loudly enough. How many of the rules holding this system together are enforced by law, and how many are enforced only because everyone assumes they will be honored? What comes next is not a prediction. It is a map of pressure points, 4 plausible paths, 4 outcomes, none of them clean. Scenario 1, Trump survives. The Senate trial concludes. 67 votes are not reached. Conviction fails. Institutionally, the process ends. Politically, it explodes. Trump declares complete vindication, not technical, not partial, absolute. Supporters read the outcome as proof the system tried and failed to destroy him. Impeachment becomes persecution, not accountability. His posture hardens, rhetoric sharpens, confrontation escalates. Survival becomes a mandate. The lasting institutional consequence is subtle but profound. Accountability becomes conditional. Scenario 2, the dam breaks. Trump is removed. This requires something extraordinary. Not noise, not fatigue, not another scandal. It requires clarity, evidence so stark it cannot be spun away, a sudden shift in public opinion, and a decision by party leadership that the institution outweighs the individual. When fear flips direction, silence shatters, votes move, removal becomes real. Even then, the system does not relax. It holds tension. Scenario 3, removal followed by a legitimacy crisis. The Constitution provides the mechanism. It does not guarantee acceptance. If Trump is removed but refuses to recognize the outcome, the crisis moves from legality to enforcement. Who is recognized as commander-in-chief? Who does the bureaucracy follow? How do security services respond? Even limited refusal creates cascading uncertainty. The system can handle disagreement. It is not built for competing claims of authority at the top. Scenario 4, the quiet exit, rarely stated openly, a negotiated off-ramp, resignation in exchange for assurances, stability over prolonged fracture. History shows systems sometimes choose closure, but there is a complication that cannot be erased. State-level legal exposure. Federal protection does not reach that far. No pardon can erase it. Any deal is fragile. Zoom out. This is not isolated. Allies are watching U.S. stability the way markets watch credit ratings. Calculated. Adversaries see distraction. Markets respond to uncertainty as they always do. Volatility, capital shifts, feedback loops form, political stress shakes markets, market stress undermines confidence. Each cycle tightens the next. This is no longer about one man. The House has acted. The Senate is the arena. From here, speeches matter less. Procedure matters more. Evidence matters more. Nerve matters most. What we are witnessing is a stress test, not of ideology, not of popularity, but of whether checks and balances still function when enforcing them is costly. The unresolved question across all 4 paths is not who wins the moment. It is this: Are American institutions strong enough to compel obedience when power refuses to yield, or have they been held together all along by habit, assumption, and hope? Thank you for listening. Share your perspective below. If this breakdown helped, like and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you don't miss critical developments as they unfold. See you next time.